Thank you, Mr. President. I'm very pleased that the Treasurer is with us today in the chamber because, sir, this one's for you. By the 1890s, the various British colonies of Australasia had sufficiently matured that a consensus emerged that, like Canada in the 1860s, the time had come for independence from Britain. The question was, should we be 7 independent nations or one big federation? The colony of New Zealand attended some of the early conventions, but then wisely opted out and deciding to be its own nation. Free trade-loving, low-taxing New South Wales was not only the mother colony, but also the most populous and prosperous. But we were the most reluctant to join federation. This chamber, in fact, Mr. President, was the epicentre of the opposition to creating a central government, which they feared would morph into a big, bossy, remote power. Now, the wording of the original Australian Constitution appeared to remove the fears of the Federation sceptics. The 1901 Constitution gave the federal government very limited powers, and beyond that, the state governments would do everything else. The Commonwealth was given responsibility for matters such as defence, foreign affairs, immigration, currency, etc. The states would look after the biggest expenses of any government: health, education, social security, etc. But the sceptics of this chamber in the 1890s have been entirely vindicated because slowly but surely the Commonwealth has taken over most of the responsibilities of the states. Now, the High Court has played a critical role, a shameful role, in defining Commonwealth powers in an ever-expansionist direction. Mr. President, we need to return to the 1901 constitutional ideal of competitive federalism. The Commonwealth can fund its strictly limited constitutional responsibilities merely off the GST. But the states should have the sole responsibility for the huge spending categories of government: health, education, social security, transport. But to do so, we'd need to return individual and company taxation powers back to being exclusively a state power. Now, Mr. President, some may ask, what benefit is there in removing a federal tax, then asking the state governments to have those precise same taxation powers? The answer to that question is that the 6 state governments would be in a constant competitive battle to offer their citizens the lowest taxation rates and the least amount of regulation. We'd have premiers and opposition leaders during a state election campaign asking voters to support them because they will cut taxes and cut spending by making government more efficient. At the moment, the states get around half of their revenue from Canberra and so have a mendicant mindset of endlessly begging Canberra for more money. Competitive federalism will result in downward pressure on government spending and tax. Our states would be acutely focused on cutting waste, which they're not at the moment, and that, of course, would soon evolve into outsourcing much state government activity to the private sector. Mr. President, the Libertarian Party is the only party in Australia that honours our original constitution, and we will keep fighting until we return to the 1901 ideal.